Hello, hello. Bienvenue les amis, c'est vous et nous.
Right, a very good evening to you and a warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us right here on In Focus. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Now, tonight on the program, our focus is on some current affairs issues around the electoral process, and that is the August presidential election right here in Rwanda. And of course, what we already know is that the National Electoral Commission has already released its preliminary list of those who have been qualified to vie for the presidential vote. But it is important for us to, first of all, try to understand what was the National Electoral Commission looking at when all those who are aspiring for this particular position submitted their dossiers. One of them is that, one, you need to be a Rwandan nationality by origin. That is one of the requirements. The other one, they're actually on your screen already. One of them is also you should not hold any other nationality, and also you should have at least one parent of the Rwandan nationality by origin. Also, you need to have irreproachable morals and probability, and of course you also need not to have been convicted and sentenced to a term of imprisonment of 6 months or more. Sixth point is that you should not have been deprived of his or her civil rights or political rights. Also, you need to be at least 35 years old on the date of submission of this particular candidacy. Now, for the independents, they need to also have, on top of that, 600 signatures from registered voters from all districts. And this definitely means that a minimum of 12 signatures per district. Now, so far, the presidential candidates in the preliminary list include Dr. Frank Habineza of the Democratic Green Party of Rwanda. And this is what he said, of course, after that particular news that he had made it to the preliminary list. He said, "It is great that NEC has today approved my candidature for president of Rwanda. We await the final confirmation." President Paul Kagame of the Rwanda Patriotic Front has not made any official statement on this particular issue. But those who have not made it on the list, one of them is Gilbert Mwenedata, who is an aspiring independent candidate. This is what he had to say when he did not make it. He said, "I made sure I had more than 12 signatures in each district, such that if some are disqualified, I would still have the required 600. I will follow up with the commission." He has since done that. The other one is also Barafinda Fred, who is also aspiring as an independent candidate. Him, it is said that he did not produce any signatures as required. Diana Shima Rwigara, who's also aspiring as an independent, did have a few missing signatures according to NEC to be able to qualify or get to the required 600. And this is what she had to say: "I disagree with their decision to not include me on the provisional list after submitting all the requirements, including 985 signatures. The required number was 600. I do hope to be on the next final list of presidential candidates as I am trying to fulfill their new requirements." Maimana Felipe is also another one who's aspiring. He got 265 approved out of the 600, and it is said that he lacks signatures from at least 23 districts right there. So tonight on the program we have an opinion poll question as well concerning the reaction by the foreign diplomats on this particular move. And the opinion Twitter poll question was actually asking you whether you feel there is anything wrong with the diplomats meeting individually with the presidential aspirants. There it is on your screen. What is the problem with foreign diplomats meeting separately with Rwandan presidential aspirants? Share your thoughts by adding the hashtag InFocusRW. 57 of you so far say no problem at all. Let's see how that unfolds in the course of the program. Let me introduce my panelists on the program. Tonight we have Ken Agutamba. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
You're welcome.
Asante. Dr. Christopher Kayumba making another return on the show. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you for inviting
Albert,
me.
on a new life. Thank you for being on InFocusRW.
Okay, thanks for inviting me.
Good, sir. Listen, the National Electoral Commission was actually on my show last Sunday. I was speaking to the executive secretary of the commission, and what they said was that having 6 presidential hopefuls in this election actually demonstrates to those who have doubts about the competitiveness of Rwanda's presidential vote that, look, we have 6. And he said this has never happened anywhere, or never happens, you know, ordinarily elsewhere. But today, the preliminary list is out and only 2 have cut to the preliminary list. Let me start with Agutamba. Your quick thoughts, because at the end of the day, do you feel that, you know, not having the 6 ends up like neck shooting itself on the foot again on that particular statement that they made? Or what is your general thought on this? Was this surprising that only 2 made it?
First of all, I should tell you that I have a really experience in presidential elections.
Mm-hmm.
I was on Museveni's campaign in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I was a media strategist for Bunyoro sub-region.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also an electoral official supervising a whole division in my hometown. So I understand a bit about presidential elections. The Rwandan situation.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. First of all, I agree. To have many hopefuls is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But to have 2 making it on the final list, is it provisional?
Yes,
whatever
this is
it is.
provisional.
Yeah. The rules you read out are all kind of valid in my view, except one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really agree with the idea of telling candidates to bring 600 signatures.
Why?
Or supporters. I mean, the whole point is that you express your interest, and there's only one judge in an election. That's the voter. So this is like a preliminary election, kind of. Mm-hmm. Because if I bring 600 people, that actually means these are 600 votes in advance. Now, if you look at a candidate who is also an incumbent, imagine how many people he could bring. 600, he could even give you 10 times that. Mm-hmm. So the point I'm making is that right now, NEC is acting within the rules of the polls that we have. So it's within the constitutional mandate that it has. Mm-hmm. However, taking the conversation forward for future elections, I would move for an amendment of this electoral law.
We remove the 600
Remove the
requirement.
600. It's a redundant demand.
Redundant demand. Let me bring in Dr. Kayumba. Your thoughts, first of all. Before you come. Yes.
Broadly, 3 points.
Yes.
I don't know if they hear us.
Yes.
If they could turn down the AC, because I cannot hear you.
Okay, okay.
It's louder than your conversation.
I'm sure they're hearing us, but
Okay.
definitely the control room will definitely deal with that. Your 3 points, very quickly, Dr.
3 broad
Kayumba.
points.
Yes.
Maybe we should start with Agutamba's point, that the requirement for 600 voters to sign for candidates is not positive. That also depends on understanding the electoral system in Rwanda. The electoral system in Rwanda is constructed in such a way that it makes it very difficult for individuals to become presidential candidates, even parliamentary candidates. You realize that in the requirements you read, that is the only requirement for
The
independent candidates. And of course, it would be easier for political parties to raise these signatures. That requirement was constructed to make sure that we have 2 outcomes. One, that pretenders to the throne do not come up, because this is a very serious exercise. So if you start allowing everybody to come without any support, the Electoral Commission will have a lot of work, and of course the exercise will be mad with all types of individuals. But also, secondly, it is also borne by our political history. Our political history, which also relates to many political contexts in Africa, whereby regionalism and the politics of identity and individuals, that I was born here. You realize the 600 signatures have to be from at least 30 districts, 12 from each. That means somebody to stand as an independent, you need to have the support, national support, which kills the idea of regionalism and the issue of where you are born. Number two.
The third, actually. You already did two.
Number two, that was to do with the broad requirement for 600.
Yeah.
Number two is that I was a little bit surprised that there is no independent candidate that was put on the provisional list, because when you, after they presented their candidatures,
Yeah.
whatever you mentioned was read out to them. And the most difficult thing for them was the 600 signatures. Finally, it is, I have an issue with the Electoral Commission, because if you read the newspapers,
Yeah.
candidates are complaining that they were not given the list of the individuals that were disqualified, such that they can cross-check and make it easier for them to know where to find them. So I think that is not a good thing, because the Electoral Commission does not only need to be transparent, but also seen to be so.
Yeah.
So I don't see why they would not release this list, because that is the only way we can prove that actually it is transparent.
Right. Albert, as we actually talk to Albert, control room, kindly let's just kill the AC, because at least at the end of the day, we also need to have all of us comfortable in this room. You know, you have made some statements earlier on during the day concerning even the independent candidates, that some people you claim seem to be, you know, vouching for them in one way or another, either by meeting them and talking to them and talking like that. Your quick thoughts, first of all, on the fact that no independent candidate made it to the provisional list?
Well, I would say it is the probability that they don't make it is higher than they would make it. Because like Christopher just reminded us, elections are being taken very seriously in this country, because it is part, the people who are there and who've put that in place, consulting the population, were coming out of such a tragedy of such a magnitude that on top of that, there was also one movement that actually stopped the genocide, won the war, and it was a liberation movement. So it had already anticipated that the kind of development for Africa is that there is no time to waste into politics. They could, at that time, have taken everything. But because of the background and the experience of different movements on this continent, it was wiser to include as many as possible who were in that direction. So today, with all the results, it's not an entertaining exercise that is the presidential election. It is something very serious. It's where does Rwanda go next, in the next for the next term? So in that context, who should qualify to go there? Because we don't have such a wealth and such time that we can just talk and talk. It is really, we've reached so far. For this not to come down, we need to hit even higher. Because of that, you need achievements. Or if you don't have achievements personally, at least you have a network, you have a structure, a support that is there that says, yes, we are going somewhere. So if you don't have that, you folklore. You're folkloric in this context.
But then
it's just the intellectual thought of, yes, but everybody should be able to contest.
Let me say two things. I think we need to be fair, first of all. One, that in Africa, generally speaking, and we're talking politics, we're talking elections.
Africa, the country.
Yeah, in Africa, first of all, it's very difficult to contest against an incumbent. Now, in Rwanda, it's even more difficult to contest against a very popular incumbent. So, having said that, there is a need to really give it up to the people who even expressed hope But first of all, put in an effort to actually take the step to challenge.
But Albert says
you
we
know,
do not have time.
No. Actually,
go through all
democracy should have time for everyone because a conversation needs time. And for me, I'm a strong believer in elections for everyone, like a vote, let the vote speak. I mean, we can design a system in a way that if you don't have support, let's see it from the results, not technical knockouts. Because what we're creating now is a conversation that you've grown up in Africa where we used to engage in a lot of village fights. And if you stood up against a very strong guy and your friends knew that, look, you cannot really take on the guy, and they pull you, and you'll go chest thumping that, you know, you were saved. If they didn't pull me, I would have kicked you. So this is the conversation we're giving these so-called aspirants or candidates. Let them come. Let the people speak. For me, that's the conversation of elections. That's the conversation of polls.
Right.
Let them be on the poll.
Right. Dr. Kayumba, Albert says that the chances of them not even making it in the final list are higher than them coming back on the list. Your take on that?
I'm not sure. I'm not very sure that the chances of they not making it to the list are higher. I'm not sure about that, but I think it is possible that 2 of the 4 independent candidates may make it. I'm not very sure. I think because the only reason they have been given is they don't have the 600. I think one is missing about 200. The other one is missing about 300 or so. And these seem to be relatively more serious. The other 2, our friend Barafinda, I think, and Philippe, it is certain that they may not make it. But also let me comment on the African presidential elections and how difficult it is to contest with the incumbent. It is not only in Africa where it is difficult. Because when you are competing with the incumbent first of all has a name recognition. They also have the structure of the state.
True.
Yeah? So if you look at elections in Asia, elections in Latin America, even in Europe it becomes a problem for the incumbent if, for example, you have 3 factors. If, for example, the youth, if unemployment is extremely high because they are voting for certain things. But this idea that it is only in Africa where the incumbent, it's more difficult to unseat him is not real. But also, you know, all the electoral systems, anywhere, they are born out of contextual factors. So this element, that even for parliamentary elections, that you will not have, we don't have constituencies in Rwanda. The whole country is structured as one electoral district, even for parliamentary candidates. And that, it is serving a certain historical problem. And as I mentioned, it is identifying a candidate with where you were born, other than the ideas you bring to the table. Therefore, I think, since even the 600 are voters, as they will in the general election, I don't think really that is a problem. Yeah. Especially if you know that what you are dealing with is a historical problem a country has had. If you need to solve the problems of today and tomorrow, you need to understand where it started raining on you. Right. And where it started raining on us, it is ethnic, regional, and individualized politics. If you don't kill that, you are in trouble.
You're in trouble. Over the past few days after this announcement was made by the National Electoral Commission, there were some reactions that came out from the diplomatic corps, the international diplomats, who seemed to be a bit concerned that how is it that all the independents, the candidates did not, or the aspirants did not make it on this. Probably at the control room we could be able to put some of the reactions so far that we had out there. But most importantly, should this be a concern? Should this be something that is abnormal? Should it be something that someone feels like, oh my God, why is this the case, Albert?
You know, you also made one thing that is crucial and that is central. In general, if you want to say, just like my colleague, in Africa, opposition, when they call themselves opposition, they only come when it's the date. They prepare nothing before. I mean, if you want to be a president in an election, you got a whole term to work on that. You don't just come parachute yourself a week, a month, 2 months before and say, I'm a candidate. And then believe that because of goodwill of people and people's sympathy, whatever, that you can make it. I mean, why is it so difficult to understand that when you have a whole term, when you have different parties, different political actors being part of this development, always being there, moving on, retreat and all that, that these guys make it, and somebody that has no, I mean, that you just out of nowhere, out of the blue you come, and you don't make it. And people are amazed about that. I'm not.
So you're not amazed?
No. I need, especially us people in the commentary world, I need us to be careful not to bully future presidential hopefuls, or even young people that may have.
Let's be direct here. You feel that what Albert is saying sort of bullies whoever is aspiring before.
Is it the reality or not?
No.
Yeah.
You see, the point is, especially after the current president directly challenged young people, actually Rwandans, to take a step, take a move and get involved. One, it calls for a moderation in current rules. Like the doctor here says, if there are elements that makes it too hard for even somebody to actually make it to the ballot, let's work on the rules. Let's create an incentive for people actually to take part. Let's not put barriers before the actual election.
Jump straight to the presidential?
No.
What have you done before?
And why not?
No, but okay.
Why not?
Okay, because this is exactly the highest office.
No.
And you need to have done something in your life, at least, but not just dream out of your bed and say,
but you see,
hey,
that's exactly the expression you make when you take yes or no to a candidate. That's the expression.
Exactly.
That's the point of
course.
Yeah?
And it's no.
So
we don't have that time.
Let's put them on the poll. Let's put them on the poll.
Yeah.
Albert, take them. You don't even have to take them because they seriously have no point for you. They don't have an agenda to convince you to take them. Right. And that's the whole point of an election.
To be part of the process.
Let me hear from Dr.
What do you lose?
On that point of argument, because some people have argued that where have you been? For example, even for some of the candidates, in fact, the one who's qualified, Dr. Habineza, he has always come under pressure. What have you done? What are you going to do for us that is different? Are you just opposing for the sake of opposing? And this is probably what Albert is actually saying here, that why jump direct to presidency when you haven't gone through, let's say, parliament or any other sort of leadership? Should that be the case? I mean, is that a yardstick that we're using?
Again, I think there are three broad points. One is when we organize presidential elections, when a nation decides to invest time and resources into that, what are we aiming at? I don't think we are aiming at pleasing anyone and everyone. We are aiming at building a system where rule of law is entrenched. And one of the elements where that can be entrenched is making sure, first of all, that rules are there and they are followed. And every office you are going to have minimum requirements. And all political systems, we have about 4 political systems broadly. You can have a majoritarian system. You can have past post the post. You can have ours that is consensual. Political systems, it is like cutting your hair. You cut your hair according to the designed in such a way that the objective is to make sure that a populist who is born, for example, in a certain area because will not come up. So I think this thing of saying that we want to please everyone, if you cannot have the minimum, then why do you go there? That is the rule.
It's not pleasing.
That is the rule. Number two. Number two.
Before number
point
two,
number
I
two.
want to chip in.
Point number two.
Let him make the point number 2, then you come in, and probably you might want to chip in on
yes,
that.
point number 2
Yes.
is, should we be asking where have you been? Why do you want this office and not that one? What have you done? I think that is the job of the media. That is me as a voter. I want to know the one who wants my trust, whether that person actually will fulfill my aspirations.
I agree.
And the only reason we will ask those questions, that is even why we encourage, or even I go to listen to candidates because I want to listen to their ideas. I want to listen to what have you done in the past? If you are 40 years or 50 years, what have you done? If you have not, for example, solved the issue of poverty, I have heard people say they are talking about.
But this is really what Albert is saying.
But
the
should,
major question.
And
What have you done?
But
Where have you been?
about that achievement.
Have you seen anywhere, where somebody that comes out of the blue and makes it? No.
Trump came out of the blue.
No, absolutely not.
No. In
Trump is
politically.
But
Show
Trump
me
is
his track
Trump.
record politically.
But Trump is Trump.
Come on,
we could have our
you
own
can't
Trump.
say that. You can't say that.
I mean, you
Excuse
tell
me.
me,
Now,
let me. Candidates, that is somebody.
No. Okay.
That is
One
somebody.
point.
Let me hear
By
what you
design,
say, yeah.
by design,
Yes.
democracy is populist.
What?
That's what it is. Go to the definition. That's what it is.
No.
It's about numbers. It's about population. It's
It's
about
not
who is
about
popular.
it's not about
But no.
populist.
Let's have him finish.
Let me
That
first
is
make
different.
this.
Yes.
By definition, by design, by history, democracy is populist. But, like he says, structure, context, country story, democracy is practiced differently from countries. Now, and that's why we have these different political systems, of which we have ours here, that, constitutes the way it is. You talked about constitutionalism. And that's why I said in the beginning that NEC is within the rule,
Constitution.
because that's what we have now. But there is what we call abrogation of the Constitution. No one is abrogating the Constitution. What we are saying is that if we are going to create an environment in which everybody finds it easy, because we have people who want to aspire to become politicians, but is the ground fertile for them to germinate? That's the whole point I'm making.
And what do you think is the answer to that question? So far,
I already said, let us look at the current rules so that we help young people germinate as politicians. And that could perhaps answer to his question, that we could open up the lower levels. In my column 2 weeks ago, that's what I argued. I said, okay, to answer directly to the question that Albert raises, where have you been? We can open up lower positions for competitive, elections, let young people come out. It should be, a grooming ground so that you don't just jump out like Albert says. But without that, you cannot blame somebody for jumping up because there's no opportunity.
Don't blame
And
him,
that was my
but
that
you
was
don't
my
expect
third
him to
that
make
was
it.
my third
Let's now
point.
hear Albert respond, actually, because he was actually countering what you said, especially on the questioning and everything. Where have you been? What have you done for us?
But hear me well. I'm not against it. If people want to do that, fine. But don't expect that they will do miracles. Most of the time, when you have something coming up, a change, is where you have a whole society that is in trauma, disappointed, whatever. Macron in France, Trump in the States, we're at a moment where the whole society has a problem, which is not the case here. You see, so all I say is that if you look at the context, at the timeline, where is Rwanda today? The whole thing that we know, even when it's not presidential elections. Well, what do you see? Then you can therefore not expect that daydreamers just come up and say that they can make it. They can play if you want, but don't expect them to make it more than just a couple of headlines.
I want us to move the conversation
And just
forward.
let me because their point is related to my third point.
Yes.
Is why are laws made? Unless we understand why laws are made, we cannot answer this adequately.
Why are they made, Dr. Kayumba?
Laws are made to solve a problem. And the electoral law in Rwanda, the electoral system I was talking about, was made to solve a problem that was related to ethnicity and regionalism. Now he's suggesting that to make it easier for the young people to come in, you have to change that. But what will make young people join politics is a system whereby nobody is barred from participation in that process. And from everything I know, even at campus, even at a university, I have been lecturing for the last 14 years. Students are actively involved. And this also removes the idea that, for example, Trump was not unknown. People don't get to be known only through politics. Look at Contact FM here, my friend Albert. Albert is a very known person. So if he came forward and presented his name, you would not say he wasn't known.
So
Trump is a billionaire. Trump is a billionaire,
I think,
and he had been involved in TV.
I think he's
for a long time.
He's getting it wrong. It's
just clarify.
There is a difference between being known and what we're talking about.
And endorsed by a party.
No.
As the second party of he was one of the candidates of the parties. He's not an independent.
What we are talking about here are political credentials, which is the context of the argument. Trump didn't have any political credentials.
But that's not the point.
He
got endorsed by
so you don't have
what is a political credential? When you have money, for example. For example, when you have money, that is a credential.
Those are tools.
What is a
But
credential?
Obama had never been president before becoming president. But he was endorsed by the Democrat Party.
Just like now, let's contextualize that to what we have today. How does that relate to our situation today? Because you brought it up.
Look, my argument, and I'm going to stick to this, is that I don't want these people, because I agree with everyone here on the panel that these guys had no chance against the incumbent, who is absolutely popular.
Not just against the incumbent, even to make it.
No.
Wait. I wanted to.
We are talking about the Electoral Commission and how they decided who should go on the president.
So,
how does that the incumbent?
Wait. Having said that, I don't want us to give these guys an excuse to say that had I been allowed to actually be on the ballot, I would have showed these guys.
But this is what they're saying. Let's not do it to please anyone.
No, it's not pleasing.
It's about that.
It's not pleasing because they qualify on all the others.
It's not. It's something very serious here.
If you were
waste time.
If you were to weigh these points, because how many qualifications are they? About seven, right? Yes. So if they achieve all the 6, and they fall short on 1, if you were to weigh them out of 100, that score should be enough to get somebody on the poll.
Right. We're going to take a very short break on that one, talking of time. And of course, we're also going to read some of your tweets. I have one here from, this person here who's called Janine Munyenshuri. Thank you so much for actually tweeting us. You're saying 100%, I agree with Albert. You cannot, out of the blue, run for the highest office. It's actually daydreaming. This is what she has to say. Keep tweeting. Hashtag is InFocusRW. Mwene Muranjira says, just in passing, have you noticed Albert Contact's outfit game? Another one from Frank Abajo says, I think all aspirants should be having previous experience in an elective office, not jumping to to vie for highest office of the land. That we should actually be questioning them. Where have you been before? And this one, he doesn't actually agree on that. We also have one here from Rude_TM says, to be qualified for the presidential election in France, you need at least 500 signatures from elected officials. So this issue of 600 actually being abolished, they say it's happening out there as well.
Including electoral regulations. Okay? And for me, again, my point is that the whole point of an election is for voters to express themselves.
Right.
If we think you're a daydreamer, we'll tell you straight.
At the ballot.
At the ballot. Right. So these preliminary elections, I'm not for them.
Right. We take a very short
break.
And
he called it a right name, crown. He did suppress the
Let's take a short break. When we come back, let's move the conversation forward. Of course, there have been pictures going on social media, of course, with some of the independent, presidential hopefuls. And of course, one of them who is also belonging to a political party, that is Dr. Frank Habineza, meeting with several diplomats. Of course, there was also a meeting by the EU, diplomats from the European Union meeting with the National Electoral Commission. We'll try and make sense out of that right here on the program when we come back. Do stay with us.
Many people have been asking what we have been up to. Well, we have told the different stories from decision makers, but this time round it will be different. We will be getting head to head with various influencers and get to the heart of the matter. It is not an easy ride, but we'll endeavor to get you there. It will be insightful, informative, and at times we will agree to disagree because we are the bridge to your leaders. and a lot is undiscovered. On Primetime Live, we will bring you a precise, in-depth analysis of the many issues around us. Is it governance related, health, matters of politics, or even business? We will dig deep to bring you that. Only that. Here on Primetime Live, it's more than just a TV show.
Now that is the smell of a new day, new business ideas, new opportunities, and above all, a new chance to start over. Forget about the news. We want to talk about the stocks that are trading, what companies have been listed, and the exchange rate, and also the money matters, not just regionally, but also globally. Take a look. They are the right arm of every business world. The small-scale businesses, they contribute a lot to our economies, and yet they face new challenges every single day. Now, I come in to stop all that. Listen to them, find a common ground, and come up with a solution. And I also give you an insight into the opportunities in their business world.
Join us every Tuesday on Business Digest.
All right, thank you so much for still being with us. This is In Focus, and the hashtag as always is InFocusRW, and my name as always is Eugene Anangwe. Tonight on the program, we are analyzing some of the current affairs issues as far as the August electoral process is concerned. We are also asking you whether you believe there's any problem with foreign diplomats meeting with the independent presidential hopefuls separately concerning the presidential election. Of course, that is the pinned tweet on our Twitter poll question tonight. So just take part in that and let us know why you think, whichever answer that you give, why you're actually taking that particular answer. I have my panelists right on the program. We have Saken Agutamba, we also have Dr. Christopher Kayumba and Albert Contact FM. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. Now, before we went for the program, for the break, of course, the issue of the impact or the reaction from different people concerning the list that National Electoral Commission came up with, the provisional list is concerned, is what we were actually looking at. But last Sunday when I was here also with the Executive Secretary of the National Electoral Commission, I did ask him concerning his reaction on the absence of the EU observer mission from the observers who are going to observe this election. It's important if we can also just listen to that particular reaction, then we can build on that particular one. The reaction of the Executive Secretary of the National Electoral Commission on the absence of the EU observer mission in these elections. Let's listen in.
We've got competitive elections.
Yeah.
As the chairman of the Electoral Commission said, right now we've got 6 aspiring candidates.
Right.
In some other countries, you may not have that big number.
Right.
These might qualify or may not qualify. We've got
Definitely not the right one, but of course, I will tell you what he had to say. He actually mentioned that it is not a problem. They have over 100 observers who will be coming here to observe their mission, and to observe the elections. And the absence of the EU observer mission does not discredit the electoral process. But building up on that, let's talk about these meetings that the hopefuls have been having with the foreign diplomats, and it has raised a bit of controversy. Some people speculating, some reacting and saying you seem to want to control our electoral process. Albert, let me start with you this time round. What is your take on these meetings that have been going on within the country?
Maybe you should top up by also mentioning their reaction. To say they're doing their job. You see? Yeah, it's part of it.
Yes.
So let it be on record.
Yes.
They say they're doing their job. But you see, for me, it's the framework, it's the context, it's the tone of voice, it's everything like that. Because they don't do it the way they do it here in Africa, because then we are our country. They see us through the same prism. They don't do it in other parts of the world, or I would say in a Western country. When you have that, you could have eventually European concern during the US presidential elections, because Trump had been so vocal about his future relation with the NATO, with the EU, with all of that. But it's never like it is here, you see? And so if it is the way it's done, and I cannot take it. It's insulting for our intellect. It's like we don't know what we are doing. It's like we need to be always by these people, you know, shown what is the civilized way to do it.
Right.
I mean, I might express it in an extreme way, but that is my feeling.
That's your feeling. Definitely, it's
and
important.
that's my reading.
As you say, it's important to actually put it on the record. You know, the Swedish ambassador has actually reacted, and she was actually reacting on this particular issue of the meetings. And it's important if we put it also on the screen. There you have it. Ambassador Jenny Austin actually says that diplomats in Sweden do meet politicians. I do too in Rwanda. It's my job. Strengthening Rwanda-Sweden relations demands understanding, and of course, meeting people is definitely necessary. This is what she has to say. What is your take on this?
In part, that is what diplomats are paid to do. They meet different players, including aspiring presidential candidates, particularly for aspiring presidential candidates, to understand their views, their motivations.
So that what happens? This, I think, is the question that people are actually asking themselves.
They would know how to deal with them in case they win. But also, part of what embassies do and diplomats is to gather intelligence information about different players. And one of the key players are aspiring presidential candidates. The problem is, to what end? Normally, even I suppose Rwandese diplomats do this in other countries to inform policy making here, to inform how we deal with the outsiders. But the major problem in Rwanda and in many countries that were colonized, it is done to legitimize or delegitimize an outcome. Even meeting, you remember they also met the Electoral Commission, but they wanted to understand why some were left out. But that is what, for example, a diplomat would not do in Sweden or in US, or because that would mean even President Trump put up a commission to investigate electoral fraud, and states are refusing because the implication is very huge. It means you are talking about who can legitimize whether an electoral system is giving out a legitimate outcome or not. So when diplomats start engaging in statements saying who should or shouldn't be a candidate, then you have entered the realm outside normal diplomacy.
But they, in all fairness, I mean, they did not say who should or who should not. Maybe just to set the record straight.
Not who should or shouldn't, but why these particular ones were excluded. It is not the job of diplomats anywhere to decide who, to check why a candidate has or hasn't been put on the list and actually make a statement.
Right. Sir Gutamba, are they making sense? You worked in President Museveni's campaign. Were you able to ask these questions in any way, and is it possible? Is it proper?
No, but I will speak as a graduate of international relations and communication. I think diplomats in many ways are like journalists. They meet anyone. It's information gathering. So for me, there's no big deal that an ambassador met a presidential hopeful. In fact, we're giving it so much, talk that we're making it a national issue, which we shouldn't.
But already Dr. Kayumba says nowhere in this world should any diplomat demand for any explanation over such kind of
I'm not sure they did demand, but what I know is that if I was a diplomat, I would meet all people interested in becoming president. What I wouldn't do is to be seen or to say things that may be misconstrued as trying to issue orders or directives. If they did that, I disagree. But diplomats, it's okay because you see, they work on assumptions that whoever is contesting actually has a slight chance of becoming president. Now, you have to build relations. It's called propagating, you know. So, like he said, if you become next president, we have where to start from. But the most important thing is these diplomats, like I said, they send reports, briefs. So you will not send things if you're not gathering information. So I look at this as information gathering processes of diplomats.
Right. But Albert also mentioned here that, you know, this doesn't happen. You know, as we don't do that in this
sometimes I think
even they don't do it to themselves.
Nah, look, sometimes I think we get too reactive and which is not necessary.
Albert, you're being reactive, which is not
necessary. And I don't think, because we don't know, I mean, there are how many countries in the world? Unless we've been there, you cannot just say that this is not that.
Let's see.
No.
Albert, just
I mean, this is a small village today. We see what is happening anywhere else, and it's not overreactory. It is a reality. Westerners, when it comes to those dates, and it is Africa, for them, they can forecast the worst, like oh, they want to be part of it. They want that they were there, and when we needed them, they were not even there in '94. You see? So even today, it's not a reason for not being there today. I agree. But it's the tone, it's the way they do it, you know?
So how would you want the tone to be like? I mean, for you to feel comfortable, I mean, as a Rwandan?
Well, this is a time that she don't have to be on the front page. You can do it discreetly. You can do it. You don't have to be like you are part, actually, of the political, I would say, season. You know, why do you want to be part of that?
Aren't they? Because they are development partners, no?
Look, for me, my biggest problem as a commentator is that when you argue that so-and-so shouldn't comment or be seen to be commenting on what is an otherwise domestic affair, is that as a commentator, an analyst or whatever, you also limit yourself that since you're Rwandan, you shouldn't be seen to be commenting on other affairs. You're limiting your environment of expression.
As a diplomat. It's not as a foreigner.
Diplomats are the same. No. Because there are instances where, as Rwandans or wherever, we've commented on affairs that are foreign to Rwanda. So this is okay.
That's not
I
the
agree
point.
with you.
I
agree with you on the point where you say,
yeah, but there was no reason to bring it up.
If the attitude is wrong, but that is for some people to analyze, not an analyst here.
But I think
what do you mean?
I think
I don't get that point though. But you can come back and elaborate on that. Let's hear from Dr. Kayumba.
We shouldn't even trivialize this as if it is an attitude thing or how it is done. It is the meaning. You know, this thing called independence and sovereignty of a nation.
Yes.
It means a people ruling themselves and deciding how to rule themselves.
Yes.
So the problem is not that diplomats here talk to different candidates, aspiring candidates, or even the Electoral Commission.
Right.
But when statements are made to the effect of whether the Electoral Commission, what the Electoral Commission is doing is right or not right, or we understand it deeply and then make statements, you are talking about the sovereignty and independence of Rwanda. That is why Mwalimu Nyerere, the former president of Tanzania, talked about flag independence. You can claim to be independent because the one in State House looks like everybody in the country. But when you are being legitimized or delegitimized from outside, that is even why it is seen here as if it is a big deal when the EU does not observe elections. Have you ever seen Rwandese go to observe in France, in Germany? When they come to observe, and you can see even in many African countries, when an EU mission says the elections were free and fair, they celebrate. When they say, no, they were not free and fair, then they go on the offensive. We are talking about a bigger question of independence of Rwanda and its the right to determine itself.
Right. So what should be the go zones and the no-go zones? Because this is an affair of Rwanda, of course,
but
as you said. So what are the go zones and the no-go zones?
I'm a believer in total independence. My grandfather, Kawalega, put up a big fight against colonialists when they were going into Bunyoro. he was defeated and died on an island. So I totally agree we should be independent. But the African story, you cannot just claim that you want independence. You have to look at the budget we just read a few days ago. The percentage of budgetary aid that we're receiving, that's where the story is. You're not going to be absolutely independent if you're still being babysat, which is my argument against aid. For Africa to be truly independent, let's try to be economically independent. I mean, yes. The moment you have...
if that doesn't happen, we can allow anybody to dictate and tell
yes,
us
but
what
this is Rwanda. And
you
Rwanda
say,
has another story on that.
Come on.
And follows the same logic.
Let's be fair to ourselves.
And follows the same logic, in fact, of dignity, and that will not accept that aid conditions your dignity.
Let's be fair to ourselves. And again, Rwanda has, been a champion at this, refusing aid with conditionalities, okay? So that's a good point. Africa should go that way. But I'm saying if you can accept help from someone, then you're perhaps going to accept their opinion.
So that is why we should have a proper debate and call what this thing is, call a spade a spade. So the thing that is being done, is encroaching on the independence of a nation.
Right.
The reasons why that is done, then we can discuss that. You can talk about aid, you can talk about moral superiority, you can talk about history.
Sovereignty and history.
Yes, that some people have been doing it for a long time. And actually, this game is played by both those in government and those outside the opposition. Whenever they meet them, they think it is a big deal.
Right.
Both the opposition and those in government, they legitimize what outsiders do when they are here. Imagine our DC ambassador meeting Hillary Clinton today to hear Hillary Clinton's views about Trump and how his administration is treating immigrants and they also killing blacks. What do you think Hillary Clinton can meet our ambassador starting to and see what Rwanda can do?
Right. Or the Russian ambassador. Or the Russian ambassador.
We have 2 minutes to go, actually 1. And of course, we just want to use this to probably give our closing remarks and probably where we see this conversation going and the turn of events. Just very quickly as we go in just less than 30 seconds. Let's go.
Whoever is not an incumbent and wants to be president of Rwanda, especially these ones, they are into it for 2 reasons. One, they know that they can't win because some of them cannot even make it to the what? To the ballot. But you also build the brand, and meeting ambassadors and getting to be noticed is something big on their CVs. So perhaps this was the objective.
To build their CVs.
Yeah, so it's a good one.
I think the Electoral Commission should make sure that whatever it does is not just transparent, but it's seen to be so. So it should provide those lists. But also, number 2, when we are discussing what is happening, it should be seen within the broader context of who is saying what about our elections. Finally, I think every Rwandan, the media, should take this exercise as important and contribute to making sure that presidential candidates have a field day campaigning, because they have that right. And we all have a role to play in making sure that this exercise goes very smoothly, and let us treat all presidential candidates with equal opportunity. Give them
without speaking in Albert's words we have no time for that. Albert, very quickly, just very briefly.
Very quickly, well, I completely disagree that meeting the ambassador is what grows your
CV.
Well, the problem is that not for the voters. The voters are Rwandans. They're not represented by those diplomats. So secondly, well, I'm completely confident that it's going to be like usual, and this society has gained in maturity, and I think it will flow. It's a challenge for media.
Yeah.
It's a challenge for media because everything is like already set, and you wonder, maybe for the media what would be more interesting is to understand how did we get there, and what is eventually the projection for the future.
Right. Super. In the other elections in other countries, I've always seen media making big monies out of electoral processes.
Not
from
in
the
Rwanda.
adverts, the campaign advertisements. Why don't you influence that?
No, the thing is that most of the time here, campaigns, actually, politics is made, I mean, is ripped off of the political game that you have in other places. Here is really a very serious thing, and there is no time for spendings, for all of that, to go in cuckoo splash and all that. Right. You don't have it. Right. It's straight to the point. It's a very short time, and media never makes money in
this. Should be the next item of our discussion when we meet next time. Of course, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on the program. This is where we end the show. Thank you also for watching and for being a part of the conversation that we've been able to be having right here on the program. We'll be able to see you again next time, same place, same time. But of course, let me just sample the Twitter poll. If you already have it on our screens, let's have it right there so that we can be able to understand how people polled before we can go there. You have it. What is the problem with foreign diplomats meeting separately with Rwandan presidential aspirants? Share your thoughts. There you go. 57% of you say there's actually no problem, and 43% of you say that there is a big problem on that. Thank you. Let's have these conversations going on. We will definitely have them right here on the program. On the 7th, the National Electoral Commission will be able to give out the final list of the presidential candidates. We'll be able to make the conversations around this and more. Thank you for being a part of the program. InFocusRW is the hashtag. Let's keep the conversation going on. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye for now. Thank you.